There are 5 institutional signals pulling money towards XRP right now, and holders are selling into every single one of them. As of today, the price sits at $1.14. Sentiment is buried at extreme fear, and that fear is exactly why people on the other side of your sell button are smiling. By the end, you will have all 5 ranked and the one that actually moves the price. The trap is not the price. The trap is treating all 5 signals as the same thing. 4 of them are real and still secondary. One of them is the whole game, and I'm holding it for last on purpose because once you see it, you cannot unsee which side of this trade you are on. Signal 5, the settlement rails. RLUSD, Ripple's stablecoin, sits near 1.7 billion in market cap, the 8th largest in the world, live across more than 40 networks. That is real money moving on real infrastructure, and a year ago, none of it existed at this scale. Here is the mechanism, because the number alone earns nothing. RLUSD runs on the same ledger XRP secures, and every one of those 40 plus networks is a corridor where dollars move and a small amount of XRP gets burnt or sourced as the bridge between currencies the stablecoin does not directly hold. So there is a thread from that 1.7 billion to XRP demand. It is a real thread, but here's the honest catch that keeps it at number 5. Stablecoin volume is not the same as XRP demand at scale. A dollar moving through RLUSD settles in seconds, but it does not force anybody to buy and hold XRP, the asset. It builds the road. It does not put cars on it. So it counts. It is real, and it ranks last because a holder who confuses road building with buying pressure is the holder who sells the bottom at $1.14. Before I give you my ranking, I want yours. Comment your own order for these 5 because most holders have never actually ranked them. They lump every headline into one feeling, call it adoption, and a feeling is exactly what gets shaken out at the bottom of a fear candle. Signal 4, the money already inside the door. XRP spot ETFs have pulled in cumulative inflows 1.44 billion. That is not promise or a prediction. That is cautious capital that already chose to be here through a regulated wrapper where retail argues about whether to sell. And this is structurally different from the retail flow you are part of. Retail money moves on emotion and a price candle in and out of a week. This 1.44 billion came in through advisors and allocation models, and it has to file, hold, and report, which means it does not flush out on a 20% dip in the way the timeline does. That is exactly why it ranks 4th and not higher. An ETF holds the exposure, but it is still the most patient, slowest money in the market. It does not chase a candle. It sits and rebalances on a calendar, not a tweet. It matters because that 1.44 billion is the floor of conviction sitting under the price. The reason a 20% dip has not turned into an 80% one. But patient money is not the thing that re-rates a chart in a single week. Here is a moment to stop and weigh that. Tap the like button and subscribe if you did not realize 1.44 billion of institutional money was already parked under the price you're scared of. So here's signal 3, the rails themselves, those 40 plus networks. This is the utility story everybody cites and almost nobody prices correctly. Being live across those 40 networks is genuine infrastructure adoption, the kind that takes years to build and cannot be faked by a press release. And it is the reason the long-term thesis is not a meme. Each network added is one more place a payment can route through XRP instead of around it, and that footprint compounds quietly, integration by integration, long after the headline fades. Every one of those integrations is a place XRP can be used for settlement that did not exist before. But infrastructure adoption is a multi-year compounding story, not a this month catalyst. It is why XRP is still standing at $1.14 instead of at 0. It ranks 3rd because it is the reason XRP survives, not the reason it moves next. Now, the signal that could change how you read the other 4, signal 2, the banks fighting it. This week, Brad Garlinghouse went straight at JPMorgan's Jamie Dimon for opposing the Clarity Act, and that fight is the most honest data point on this entire list. Sit with what it tells you. The largest payment banks in the country is spending political capital to stop a law that simply makes XRP legally clear. Nobody fights something that does not threaten them. You do not lobby against a competitor that is irrelevant. Opposition is the proof. When the companies that XRP is built to dismantle are quietly working the phones against your assets' legal clarity, that is not noise. That is the market confirming the thesis from the other side of the table, in the one language that costs the people speaking it real money. Subscribe and like the video, because the week that fight gets decided is the week the number one signal flips live, and I will have the read the morning it lands. So why is the bank war only number 2? Because a fight is a signal of importance, not a mechanism. It tells you XRP matters enough to attack. It does not, by itself, put a single buyer into the order book. Importance and buying pressure are two different things. And the thing that converts one into the other is number 1, the piece every adoption video on your feed skips entirely. One more thing before the reveal: comment the one signal on this list you think is pure noise, because that exact disagreement is the thing we test at the end. Signal 1, the legal re-rate. The Clarity Act classifies XRP as a digital commodity, not a security. It has already passed the House 294 to 134 and cleared the Senate Banking Committee. And the reason it sits at number 1 is mechanical, not emotional. Every other signal on this list, every dollar of RLUSD volume, and every dollar of ETF inflow has been operating with one hand tied behind its back, because the largest pools of institutional capital are mandated by their own rules to avoid anything that might be an unregistered security. That is not caution, it's a law. The day XRP is legally a commodity, that mandate flips from a wall into a green light. The custody desks, the pension allocators, the corporate treasuries, the funds that are legally barred from touching XRP today are suddenly permitted to buy the underlying asset itself, not a wrapper around it. And that is the only signal on this list that converts adoption into net new demand for XRP at scale. It is the difference between building the road and finally opening it. And here is the part that should sit with you. The holders selling this week at $1.14 are selling to the exact institutions waiting for that green light. The fear is not protecting you from the trap. The fear is making you the other side of it. So here is the verdict, and it is one ranking, not a maybe. Of the 5 signals, 4 are real and supporting, and 1, the legal re-rate, is the one that actually moves the price, because it is the only thing that turns watchers into forced buyers of XRP itself. The single thing that invalidates this entire ranking is clean. If the adoption stays all stablecoin volume and patient ETF money with no legal unlock of the underlying, then the road never gets cars and the price thesis is hollow. That is the line, not the headlines. The unlock. And send this to one holder you know is selling into this week's fear, because they are the one quietly handing their seat to the institutions on the other side. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tap the notification bell if you want the read the morning the legal vote lands. That is the next one to watch.